Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Report, the archived editions. I am Dave Rush in Niagara Falls, along with John Poulter in Toronto. Welcome to the show today, John. How are you?
Thank you very much, Dave. Doing very well, and always fun to chat with you on the Sports Archives.
It is. All right, now we're going back a ways today on the archives. So it's hockey, and tell us who we got.
Well, today we're going to look at Dave Keon, who was born in 1940 in Rouyn-Noranda, Quebec, which is a mining community about 400 miles northeast of Toronto. And Keon played 22 seasons of pro hockey, including 15 with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a four-time Stanley Cup champion with the Leafs, twice a second-team All-Star during his time with the team, winner of the Calder Memorial Trophy as the NHL Rookie of the Year in 1960-61. And that was the first year of a streak of 6 20-goal seasons. And in those days, 20 goals was quite the landmark in pro hockey. He was also twice winner of the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy as the NHL's most gentlemanly player.
Okay, hold on right there. You may not know this, folks out there that might watch this, but sometimes I will actually prepare for these segments. And I went over John's notes from today, what he's going to talk about. Twice winner of the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy as the NHL's most gentlemanly player. That caught my attention. I did not know there was such a thing as the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy. So can you tell us what that's about, John?
Yeah, for sure, Dave. It's one of the long-standing trophies that's awarded annually by the NHL. It's been around since, I believe, 1924-25. In other words, the early days of the NHL, which started in the 1917-1918 season. Officially known as the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy, it was originally known simply as the Lady Byng Trophy, and it's presented on an annual basis to the NHL player. And according to the guidelines, that is the player that it is adjudged to have exhibited the best type of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct combined with a high standard of playing ability.
Very nice.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
who's Lady Byng?
Well, Lady Byng was, I thought you might ask me that too. She was the wife of a gentleman, Mr. Byng, Lord Byng, who was
Lord.
was the vice regal consort of Canada at the time, which was the mid 1920s. And Lord Byng, in his days as Viscount Byng, was the commander of the Canadian forces at the Battle of Vimy Ridge in World War One. And subsequently, after the end of World War One, he was the Governor General of Canada. And going back on my history here, but I believe it was about 1921 to 1925. So right in and around the time that the trophy was donated. It's
Okay. Well, now we
it's
got that. Okay.
it's an interesting trophy because in doing my research for this episode of the archives, I found out that it's been awarded 88 times, but to only 53 different players. So do the math very quickly, 35 repeat winners. And of those repeat winners, 18 have won the trophy at least twice. And on 10 occasions, a player has won at least two Bings back to back. One gentleman by the name of Frank Boucher with the New York Rangers in the early days of the trophy won it 7 times in 8 years. So it's a trophy that it's an interesting trophy because it's one that players don't really set out to win. It's something that just sort of happens, often by reputation. In many ways, it's similar to a baseball player winning a Gold Glove for defensive skills. Though those trophies, those Gold Glove trophies, are also often won based on reputation as much as they are won on statistics. So it's a very unique honor and trophy in the NHL. It's one that's won for much more than playing skill. So I think it has a very significant place in history. But
Okay.
in
Well, do we still have time left on the segment now for today? We've done 4 minutes on the Lady Bing Trophy. Okay, let's continue then.
Okay, so in both of his Bing winning years, Keon took only one minor penalty for 2 minutes in penalties all season. And in addition to those two wins, he was in the top four voting for the Bing on 7 other occasions. He was the winner of the Conn Smythe Trophy as the most valuable player during the Stanley Cup playoffs in 1966-67, the last time that the Leafs won.
That was it.
22 years of pro hockey, played 1,597 games, registering 498 goals, 779 assists, 1,277 points. During those years, he accumulated only 137 minutes in penalties. So that's an average of just over 6 minutes a season. So that'll tell you
Amazing.
how classy a player he was. He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1986 and into the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame in 2010. In 2016, he was named the greatest player in Toronto Maple Leaf history. And in 2017, he was named one of the 100 greatest players in NHL history. And that combined with the 100th anniversary of the National Hockey League. That same year, he was added to Legends Row outside the arena, now known as Scotiabank Arena, but in those days, the Air Canada Centre. And Legends Row is where the Leafs honor former great players with statues. So quite a career. And he always started out in the Leaf system. He played junior hockey at St. Michael's College in Toronto in 1956-57. Once scored 7 goals in a junior B game. He ended up being Rookie of the Year in that league. Then spent 3 seasons with the St. Mike's Junior A team before turning professional towards the end of the 59-60 season. And he played a handful of minor league games. I believe it was in Sudbury, and that was the only time that he ever played in the minor league. So again, quite an accomplishment. 60-61, he joined the Leafs, where he played for 15 seasons. Leafs leading scorer 3 times, team's top goal scorer twice. For most of his career, he played against the other team's best centers, and that is the likes of Jean Beliveau, Jean Rattel, Stan Mikita, Alex Delvecchio, the top guys in the league. He was a very fast and very smooth skater, and in addition to regular duty, he also killed penalties.
Now what? No, okay, killed penalties. I am not a hockey guy like you are. So how does a player kill penalties in hockey?
Well, Dave, killing penalties is a term that's used to describe how a team defends when they are shorthanded as a result of one of their players taking a penalty. So if your team is shorthanded, you have 4 skaters on the ice to the other team's 5. So the shorthanded team's opportunity for offense is much more limited. So the idea is to play defensively during those 2 minutes, forcing the opposition to keep passing the puck and try to force them to take very low percentage shots, thereby eating away at the time left in their advantage. So essentially, you're killing time, which is where the term penalty killing likely originated.
Okay.
It's a very common term now. In statistics, you'll just see it identified as PK. So Keon was named captain of the Leafs in October 1969, remained captain till he left in 1975. In 70-71, he scored 8 shorthanded goals for the Leafs. At that time, that was a league record. It's subsequently been broken several times. That season, he had his lowest points per game average since his rookie year, and it is believed that that is what cost him a roster spot on the Team Canada 72 series with the Russians, which was initially the Summit Series. That spot went to Bobby Clarke, and actually that was the springboard to Bobby Clarke becoming a famous hockey player and eventually becoming a Hall of Famer. Former Leafs owner Harold Ballard, he was quite a character, was not one to hold back of his criticism of people, and that included his players. After Keon's subpar 71-72 season, he publicly criticized Keon for those low scoring totals in that year. So Keon signed a letter of intent with the then Ottawa Nationals of the brand new WHA, received a $50,000 check from the Nationals, but the deal fell through just before training camp. So he ended up signing another 3-year deal with the Leafs and ironically scored 37 goals in the first year of that contract in 1972-73. He also scored his 297th goal as a Leaf that year, passing former captain George Armstrong and Frank Mahovlich to become the team's leading all-time goal scorer. Daryl Sittler has subsequently broken that record. But once again, in the 74-75 season, Mr. Ballard publicly criticized Keon. This time he said that the team was not getting good leadership from its captain, and he vowed never again to agree to a no-trade clause in a contract, as he had with Keon. And when Keon's contract expired at the end of that season, Ballard made it very clear that his days as a Leaf were over. So Keon, who was 35 at the time, was told that he could make his own deal with another NHL team, but any club signing him would have been required to provide compensation to the Leafs. So Ballard established that compensation at a very high price. I believe it was a number 1 draft choice, first-round draft choice. thereby discouraging other teams from signing him. And it was kind of ironic, really, because Ballard had effectively blocked Keon from joining another team, even though he didn't want him on his own team. So that's just the way Harold Ballard operated. So that sort of meant Keon had to find himself another place to play. Knowing he was unwanted by the Leafs, he finally did move to the WHA, signing a 2-year contract with the Minnesota Fighting Saints, and that contract was reportedly worth $300,000 over 2 seasons. Saints were coached by an old friend of Keon's, a fellow by the name of Harry Neal, who then became a TV commentator and became very famous as a color commentator on Hockey Night in Canada. Both Keon and the Saints played well, but the team had major financial troubles, which was not uncommon in the WHA. Late in the season, the team folded. At that time, Keon was expected to return to the NHL. The New York Islanders reportedly had interest, but Ballard continued to insist on compensation, so the interest waned. So Keon instead signed a contract with the Indianapolis Racers, another team in the WHA. And in those days, the WHA was a very bizarre place, and the Minnesota Fighting Saints were reborn for the 76-77 season. So Keon ended up getting traded back to the Fighting Saints, but once again, the team folded, this time for good, about halfway through the season. So once again, he was looking for a place to play. He was briefly the property of the Edmonton Oilers, who were at that time were also in the WHA, but they immediately traded him to the New England Whalers of the WHA, and that was, I believe, January of 1997. He remained with the Whalers through the rest of his playing days, and the Whalers joined the NHL in 1979 with the NHL-WHA merger. And at that time, they changed their name to the Hartford Whalers, simply because they were playing in Hartford, Connecticut. Interestingly, while the rules of the merger allowed NHL teams to reclaim any players whose NHL rights they still own, the Leafs again showed no interest in having Keon rejoin them. So they were by this time, they were no longer permitted to claim compensation from another NHL team. So Keon re-signed with the Whalers for 3 seasons and played his last 3 seasons in the NHL as a Hartford Whaler. And that, ironically, that first season back in the NHL, Gordie Howe and Bobby Hull were also his teammates, just for a season though, because both of them retired at the end of that first year. And Keon's skills were starting to decline. His last 2 seasons in the NHL, he was the oldest player in the league, and his skills had declined to the point where even his defensive skills had deteriorated. He was a combined minus 78 in his last 3 seasons with the Whalers. They weren't a very good team in those years, so he decided that after the 81-82 season, at the age of 42, he was going to hang up his skates and permanently retire. So then he moved into retirement, and after retiring from hockey, he moved to Florida, worked in the real estate business for several years, still bitter over his treatment by Ballard, and for many years he refused to have any contact with the Leafs at all, even after Ballard had passed away. It was something that ate away at him very, very much. He declined a number of offers from the team to attend ceremonial events, including ceremonies to close Maple Leaf Gardens in 1999 and a proposed ceremony to honor his retirement of his number 14. However, he did sort of come around a little bit in early 2007. He agreed to attend a pregame ceremony to honor the 1967 Stanley Cup team. The ceremony coincided with the first ever game played at Maple Leaf Gardens, so a very historic ceremony. He was the second last player introduced that night and received a long-standing ovation. Former captain George Armstrong was the last player introduced. So this was followed by 2 appearances to honor the 63 and 64 Stanley Cup winning teams. His number 14 was officially retired at a ceremony to honor the Leafs' 100th season just before the start of the 2016-17 season. Always a modest man, Keon never sought the limelight, and during his time with the Leafs, he lived in a very quiet residential neighborhood, ironically about a 5 or 10 minute walk from where I live. His son, Dave Keon Jr., who is now the timekeeper at the Scotiabank Arena, the old Air Canada Centre in Toronto, still lives in that home, so a little bit of history there. Keon was only 5'9", 165 pounds during his playing days, but he was a star in the old 6-team NHL who could score goals, set up goals, and took very few penalties. So deservedly voted one of the game's all-time greats.
So is that why you have of course, a big selection of folks you can pick from on the archives to cover? Was it part of it because they were so close to where you grew up?
No, not really. I always admired him as a hockey player because he was a guy that got by on skill much more than toughness, and we all know how much a big part of hockey toughness is. But I always admired Keon as a hockey player, and I thought he bit his tongue many times when Ballard chastised him and publicly criticized him. I just thought he handled it with class, and I was very sorry to see that he distanced himself from the Leafs after he retired. But I'm now pleased that he has come back into the fold and is looked upon as a hero here. And again, the fact that he has that statue on Legends Row is a tribute to his ability as a player and also as an individual.
All right, with Packer Dave in Niagara Falls, he's John Poulter. This is the Sports Archives.